All right. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where in the world you are. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today for EFA Design Showcase Awards, a presentation of industry-leading design excellence. This is a SAGE webinar. It'll be presented by myself, Jami, as well as my co-presenters, Chad, Dustin, Beth, Sue, and Stephen. So with that, my name is Jami Mohlenkamp. I'm a longtime SAGE member and principal with Oz Architecture. I lead our older adult practice area, and I'm very excited to be moderating this webinar session today. I'm going to go through we're going to have our panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll start moving forward. So we can go ahead and start with Chad.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chad Bederka. I'm the principal with Horde Copeland Mock Architects. I currently reside in Baltimore, Maryland, and I've been with the firm going on 17 years now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dustin, Julius. I'm a partner and designer with RLPS Architects. We're based out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I've been with the firm for about 12 years or so.
I'm Beth Faircloth. I'm with BJMW Architecture and Interior Design. We're located in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I've been with the firm for about 25 years.
Hi, my name is Sue M., principal with Perkins Eastman. I lead the California practice for senior living. Been with the firm about 8 years and been in senior living world about 25 years.
All right. And I'm Steve Rupert, principal at GBD Architects in Portland, Oregon. Been at GBD for about 20 years and started a little more than 20 years ago in the senior housing industry. And then between that time and now, spent a lot of time on multifamily hospitality and bringing that back to the senior living realm.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank all the panelists for their time today and sharing with us this great work that they've done, and as well as everyone else for joining us here today. For those of you who are not familiar with SAGE, we are the Society for the Advancement of Gerontological Environments, and we're a membership-based organization representing and promoting collaboration between all disciplines in the senior living industry. SAGE is pleased to present AIA-approved webinars every month. And I think they just did their 101st, so there's a lot of really good content out there. SAGE is pleased to present these webinars with careful planning of educational content presented by fellow colleagues in our professional field, hopefully giving everyone an insight into the topics, and with any luck, hopefully we all learn something through these. The webinars are free to SAGE members, so if you like what you see in here today and you're not a member, please consider visiting the website at sagefederation.org on the bottom of the slide here for more information on a SAGE membership. I'd highly encourage everyone. It's a great organization. Throughout the presentation today, everyone is going to be muted except for the panelists and presenters. You'll have the option to type in any questions by clicking on the Q&A button at the top of your screen. And at the conclusion of the session, assuming time allows, we're going to work through those. And I think we all have a few minutes to stay on just in case we do run late. But please keep all of those questions relevant to the topic for today. SAGE is an AIA-approved provider, and participants in this course are eligible for one learning unit through AIA. Please note that you must be registered for and logged into the webinar to receive the credit for the AIA continuing education or to get that certificate. Please make sure that the name you use to log into the webinar corresponds with the name used for your registration. SAGE will report credits earned by course attendees to the AIA continuing education and will provide certificates of completion within 1 week if requested. If you did not enter your member number or request a certificate of completion upon registration, please email info@sagefederation.org. And that information will get to the right person who can get that certificate for you. All of the information presented in today's presentation is protected under copyright. This is our course description here, and really it's a collaboration between SAGE and EFA for the design showcase. And essentially there's a jury put together, submissions are made, and the jurors go through a number of criteria. There's 4 of them we'll discuss here in a minute that they use to evaluate all the projects. So it's not just simply that the prettiest projects win. It's really about staff and resident engagement, outcomes, etc. So really great criteria for all of these projects. Our learning objectives here are to learn about design outcomes, the challenges that were overcome, and solutions employed to create the award-winning environments for the aging, understanding innovative industry and design trends that represent important design concepts to incorporate into future environments, seeing how senior housing providers are positively impacting resident quality of life and the experiences of staff and family, as well as gaining valuable insights into the design of the award submission, review, and award process. And the design showcase has 3 levels of awards, which are the award of merit. Next would be the honorable mentions and the finalists. And today we're here to talk about the award of merits and the honorable mentions. The jury is made up of a diverse group of individuals who are all SAGE members. And again, these are architects, interior designers, and outside of the design profession, we have providers and other people that work within the older adult industry. The competition metrics for the design showcase are aesthetics, experience, collaboration, innovation, and operations and well-being. And all 4 of these items were touched on by the submissions by all of the applicants and then judged during the judging process. With that, we'll hand it over to Dustin and go ahead and jump into our first project.
So thank you, Jamie. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to speak with you all about the River Homes. These are the River Homes, and they're part of a community in Plantsville, Connecticut, that is Live Well, and they specifically serve people living with dementia. We really started this process with kind of a backwards approach where we were not necessarily trying to make an institutional model feel more home-like, but instead starting from the opposite end, really creating a home and then layering on the code requirements and the operational layers to support people living with dementia. So what you see here is really the result of, which is this sort of well-appointed New England style home that appears to just be 2 stories from this front side with maybe some attic space. But what you'll see in a moment is just this idea that it is 4 stories that houses 16 residents in each of these paired homes. We had to get creative with some of the elements, like you see the stair tower and elevator is in the center there, really creating those chimney-like elements. If you go to the next slide, this process really began well before the architectural process with a set of focus groups where we were focused on this idea of not designing for memory support, but instead designing with people living with dementia. And out of that long process of engagement with the residents, we really landed on this theme of trying to balance the independence and choice with safety and care. And really that was sort of the birth of this more independent model of what is actually, from the code's perspective, still an assisted living environment. So the River Homes are just one part of this, the solution to this, this charge of creating that level of autonomy. The Resilient Living Center that you see in yellow here, that's really where the dining, holistic wellness, performance, visual arts, those types of activity functions are housed. And really in purple then here, the skilled environments as you might age out of the River Homes. Going into the buildings themselves on the next slide, the lower level, that's where we really disguise some of the mass of the building. So the grade on the site allowed us to actually tuck this floor, the garage level, into grade. And yes, we do have underbuilding parking in the River Homes. We took over a parking lot, and so we needed to give some of that space back for staff. But what's interesting too is that the idea here is that spouses or loved ones are able to live with their partner who might be living with dementia. And so they would have underbuilding parking as a part of living in these homes as well. You can see the discrete sort of loading dock and mechanical spaces are all kind of hidden around this backside of the building as well. If we go up to the first floor, you'll see this is really the main level. We've got sort of 2 wings of space. You can imagine the left and right. Each of those having residential zones, those private spaces, and then that center yellow space, that's really the heart of the home. That's where all of the common areas are located. And the notion here, one of the guiding principles was that throughout design, we really wanted no space to feel oversized. Yes, there might be 16 people eating in the kitchen, but we want to be able to have separate spaces. So some can eat at the dining table, maybe some eat in the Four Seasons room and some at the kitchen island. So there's opportunities as well for each of these spaces to really still feel very much like a home. If you go to the second floor, you'll see there are additional resident units on this floor. They're also connected back to a common space in the center. And another one of the key design principles was we wanted to create some interconnectivity between these 2 levels. So there's actually a pocket of space on the lower right that isn't open to below space. And you can imagine yourself kind of coming out of your room, smelling freshly baked muffins that are wafting up from the kitchen. You lean over the balustrade and you can see down to the kitchen table. that entices you to go and be a part of the activity down there. We go to the next floor. One of the really unique parts of, again, how we created this building form was tucking the fourth floor into the roof trusses. And so, this really was part of the program, which was creating a way for a nursing student or a live-in care navigator to be a part of the community of people who live in these resident spaces. So we created these 600 square foot, 1-bedroom apartments. They've got a full kitchen, private bedroom, private bathing area as well, laundry, all of those types of amenities to support someone who could come and really help to oversee the household. If you go to the next slide, we'll start to see some of the images as they unfold. What's really critical was that we wanted to provide outdoor access really at every vantage, every perimeter of these homes. So the front side obviously had great access. On the back, we were able to keep these more secured terraces that still overlook the Quinnipiac River and the wooded area beyond, but really provided that free outdoor engagement. If you go to the next slide, we'll see a shot of the kitchen. I love this shot because I think it points out that this is the kind of kitchen that any of us would hope to have in our own homes, and right down to those glass front cabinets. And yes, there is even a wine fridge that's highlighted here on the right-hand side. And so this really was poking at this idea of saying that, these basic acts of daily life, they don't need to be restricted, and we can instead encourage them. And yes, they have to be closely monitored by staff, and that becomes an operations situation that's been worked through as part of the staff education. But it really focuses on this idea of access and respect for their residents instead of the limitations and interventions that we sometimes see. This next shot of the kitchen, if you advance, really shows the kitchen from the opposite perspective. And again, reinforces the notion that we have these intentionally sized environments that are visually connected, but individually appointed. So you can see to the fireplace in the great room, you can see out the Four Seasons room to the left. This next shot shows the bedrooms. This was, again, paying careful that every square foot is maximized. We wanted to not oversize the sleeping spaces. We wanted residents to come out of those spaces and really be a part of the larger part of the home. But we did want to have a real influx of natural light coming in. We have top-down, bottom-up shades and curtains in front of the windows as well, just to give that home-like feel in every way that we could. That extends to the next shot of the bathrooms, where we really wanted to create that autonomy, that sense of space that, this doesn't feel institutional in any way. It again feels like it's directly out of a traditionally home-like environment. This next shot shows one of my favorite spaces. It's the looking into the library. I love this space because it's really cozy. We tried to use that color drenching strategy with that blustery sky, blue-green color. And that really created this sense of intimacy in each of these spaces. But moreover, I think it points to one of the bigger goals of the project, which was really the seamless integration between the architecture, the interior space, and then the FF&E selections as well. So rather than flipping through a catalog and picking a bunch of standard items, this really feels like a collection of treasures that you might find at an estate sale. And that's because a lot of them did actually come from estate sales. And so, we used this as a strategy in order to create and maximize those opportunities for memory recall. So, you might see a book or a basket on a shelf that brings back a memory to the forefront of your mind. And, we really just used this as a way of celebrating the story of each of the residents who comes to call the River Homes home. The next shot shows the great room. Again, the emphasis on the light coming in, the southern exposure really brings a real richness of daylighting into the space. The piano, they actually have a resident who's living there now who frequently is able to play. So playing off of each of the senses, the smells from the kitchen, the sounds from the great room, just de-emphasizing the TV that is there, but, really creating other opportunities for ways of using the space. The next shot shows the parlor, the fireplace kind of off to the right-hand side, the access to the outdoor terrace that we saw from the lower level, and then really not only creating these intentionally sized spaces, but interconnecting them in a way that the visual connections are key. So you're seeing into the great room and you're seeing into the kitchen around the corner as well. This next shot shows the sunroom or the Four Seasons room. So again, it can be used for additional dining. imagine a holiday dinner. This is set up with a large banquet table, but it also can be built into these smaller soft seating arrangements. The tile floor, the rich wood tones on the ceiling, that copper light fixture by a nearby local artisan really creates that quality of space that just feels like home. The next shot actually shows, I did want to just point out one of the challenges. So being able to create this environment, as I said, we were up against some code requirements that caused us to create, obviously, the separation between the sleeping areas and the assembly zones throughout the plan. But we didn't let that be a barrier. It didn't default to the strategies and just say, let's do away with the open to above space. Instead, we found a horizontal fire shutter. So if you look off to the right-hand side, that black line in the open to above space, that's actually a spot where a shutter can come across and create that separation that we were required to have. And as a result of that, Millie Hunt, their COO, she always says that the fire drills at the river homes are just a sight to behold, because you've got walls moving and shutters closing, and it's just a really, must be a great experience. I haven't actually witnessed it yet, but I'll be up there in a little bit, a couple weeks to see, hopefully, maybe that in action. And then this last shot is of the den. You can see the windows are kind of blanked out here. And that's just because during the photo shoot that we've had to date from time for this submission would have been looking out onto a construction site. So what has really taken the place out those windows is a view to the greenhouse that's part of the test kitchen, that's all part of that resilient living center. And it reinforces this idea that, yes, these are the homes that, or the places that these residents call home, but they're enticed to be a part of a greater community and really access those activity spaces. So really excited to share this project with you all.
Appreciate that, Dustin. Great project for sure. I wanted to just call out a few of these jury comments that stuck out to me being part of the process. The focus on a resident first and prioritization of programming known to help aid the quality of life for residents with dementia is great. The design team showed thoughtfulness and best practice and designed for challenge descriptions. Common areas are well designed and colors will assist all residents. All exterior areas are well thought out, inviting yet safety was a main focal point, and then truly feels residential. Common spaces are like tree houses looking directly into the site, diversity of interior spaces and choices. So this one definitely caught a lot of the jurors' attention and was a really great project.
Thank you, Jamie.
Next, we're going to go ahead and hand it over to Chad.
Hey, thanks, Jamie. First, before I begin, I'd like to thank Sage Federation for allowing us to present today. This is a great opportunity. I'm assuming my other presenters today would agree. So without further ado, Broadview at SUNY Purchase is an intergenerational senior living community that won an honorable mention through EFA. The objectives moving into this project were for us to center around lifelong learning foremost, and then fostering multi-generational connections and providing premium amenities. As you'll see when we go through this project, there's an elevated level of sophisticated design inside the premises. It's a very affluent neighborhood. And so we wanted to make sure that the residents coming in here felt like it was part of their home, obviously coming in and moving in. And a lot of these residents had 3 or 4 homes before they moved into this project. And so we had to accommodate the space within the units to make sure that, they felt like they were transitioning from one house to another house. So next slide. This project is located approximately 25 to 30 miles north of New York City within Westchester County. And as you see on the screen right now, the site plan is part of SUNY Purchase College, New York. The college itself encapsulates 500 acres. Our portion of the site was 40 acres, which had a challenge. So the challenge was the landmark, which you see in the center of the screen, which was, to say better terms, a dump of some point many years past that was capped off. We did a lot of remediation and changed that into a beautiful walkway path site that is a division point between the villas and the main buildings of the campus. And then you'll start to see the adjacencies of how close in proximity the college is. Next slide, please. In this view, you'll see the 46 villas on the left-hand side, the park, which I talked about in the center. And then on the right-hand side, there's 2 distinct wings, the east and west wing, which encapsulates 87 IL units in each building. And then on the back side of the building, we have an assisted living building, which is 36 units with 32 memory care units on the first floor. The Commons building in the center encapsulates something what we called the Learning Commons, which is a 10,000 square foot adaptation space for students and residents to learn together. And so we wanted to make sure we were as close in proximity to the campus as possible. And so it's hard to see in this image, but there is an admissions building that is right next to and adjacent to our site. And so we are within walking distance to the admissions building, the Nuremberg Museum, which is one of the most famous museums probably within the country of donated artwork. And keep in mind, this is an art college. Next slide. So this is just an aerial shot, far and few, because there's an airport very closely nearby, and aerial photography is really not allowed in this area. But we were able to have somebody fly over top and take a picture. This is pretty much the finished product, showcasing the villas separated by the park itself, and then the Commons building, the IO building's ALMC. Next. So in this building, you'll see on the far right-hand side what we call the Learning Commons, a 10,000 square foot area. And so it was important for the residents and the providers of the campus that we needed to segregate to keep the residents feeling like they had a portion that was theirs and the students had a portion to themselves that they could use. And so there's access points on the back-hand side, which is that far right corner, which allows students to walk into the common space and utilize the separate classrooms inside, while residents can also enter by secure networks to get into the space and utilize the space for classes, teaching. There's also a bar within the space, and so that students and residents can mingle at various opportunities and events. Next slide. This is the second floor. So the second floor has additional dining spaces. So there's multiple dining venues within inside this project. We wanted to make sure that the residents had every opportunity to have a multitude of dining experiences and not just a single source of dining. So next slide. This is a backhand view of the campus. And so you'll see the exterior dining terraces on the upper portion. And then on the left-hand side is the Learning Commons itself with the rear access to the students. As part of the design, we encapsulated some spaces within the proximity of the site for food trucks to be able to come up and park. And so there was opportunity for different dining venues to come up and contributors of food trucks to come up and park and have residents have access to different sort of food that they're not normally used to. There's also an outside-inside amphitheater, which is accessed through a pair of sliding doors so that music and performances can be heard from outside and from inside. Next slide. This is that amphitheater I'm talking about from the outside. And so it's just a great opportunity. And you'll see in the background the Missions building, which is an existing building, which is some of the design aesthetics that we grabbed as we started moving forward. Keep in mind the existing SUNY campus is a Brutalist design project. So it was built in the 1960s and 70s, and it has a very drab exterior design in the building. So we tried to encapsulate some of the surrounding districts and communities in our exterior design facade. Next slide. This is inside the Learning Commons. And so we wanted a large volume of space for a multitude of uses, right? So we wanted to be able to have movies in this area or have lecture series or to have music events and also a bar on the backhand side. So what we have on the right-hand side in the main image is classrooms that are subdivided by air walls. And so these walls lift up with glazing to allow an open space or segregated spaces for arts and crafts, maker rooms, photography lessons. So there's a multitude of different ways that this space can be set up. Next slide. This is the bistro on the main floor. This is our casual optional dining spot. It's a coffee bar, dining venue, grab and go. It has suntrees on the backhand side. And it's just more a casual atmosphere that residents can grab mail, come sit down, have a coffee, and intermix with other residents, and just have a common space that is flexible. Next slide. This is the main dining venue on the second floor. As part of the main dining venue, we introduced something called a chef's table. The chef's table is a space or a table that can be rented out where it's inside the kitchen. And so that residents and chefs can prepare meals together in that space and also be able to dine in that space. So it's an elevated hydraulic table that lifts up for preparation of food and then can be lowered down for a dining venue. And so it's a really unique space that can be subdivided out for learning lessons and also chef lessons. Next slide. This is just some imagery from the dining venue, just talking about the aesthetics, and we wanted a feel with inside the space was timeless, that could be changed in the future with design aesthetics to meet the future needs of residents. Next. This is Aquatic Center. So wellness was a big part of the design. We wanted to make sure that along with a movement room, activity rooms, weight training, salons, pools, we wanted to make sure that the whole genre of wellness was approached for the seniors in this location. And so we added a beautiful pool, which has an outdoor terrace for sunbathing or sitting outside and then just enjoying the weather. Next slide. This is part of the memory care garden, which is inside the ALMC building, which is a courtyard kind of contained within inside the space. And so we introduced a wandering garden inside in the center of the space, segregated by tiles and different sort of grass mixture in the inside so that residents could have sort of a space to wander around and meander. Next slide. This is the park that I was telling you about, which is the landfill, which was later transformed into this park-like setting. So we have walking trails. There's pull stations for residents in case there's any incidents. There's a pergola on top so people can look at the views and surrounding area. It's a very heavy wooded site adjacent to this, so there's a lot of wildlife as well. Next slide. This is an interesting, these are the 46 villas. The villas were built off-site as prefabricated units in Baltimore, Maryland, and shipped up on tractor trailers and then assembled on site and finished on site, which saved a lot of time in the process of construction. And there was more quality control associated with these villas as well. Next slide. I would say lastly, a program is only good enough with the staff that are there. And Ashley Wade, who's the executive director, has really made this campus flourish. If you follow Broadview online on Facebook, almost every single day they're posting fantastic posts from residents actively engaging and utilizing the spaces. So as architects, we can only design the spaces, but the space themselves being utilized by the program itself is where it ends up being and needed. So just thank you, Jamie.
Excellent. Thanks, Chad. Great introduction to the project there. Some of the jury comments that I picked out were, the innovation of not only an intergenerational environment for Broadview, but also incorporating the college atmosphere through the learning commons was commendable. Wow, what an amazing project. From the artwork collaboration, operational efficiencies, high-end finishes, variety of amenities, architectural details, and layouts of the whole campus, this is an exceptional project. Intergenerational opportunities should continue to increase due to this design. Resident access to the education center is promoting growth for all who use this campus. Interior massive windows bring the outside in. Common areas are warm and welcoming. So very, very good project. Definitely got a lot of good comments from our jury. With that, we'll head on to our next one and hand it over to Beth.
Thank you, Jamie. We're very excited about sharing this project. It has a real special place in our firm's heart. We're actually located in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and Thrivemore, the managing faith-based not-for-profit community that is building this is located here in Winston-Salem as well. And they have 4 communities throughout the state of North Carolina, and they're actually developing a 5th one. But the way that this came about was Reed Vanderslick, who is the CEO of Thrivemore, met with some of our architects about an idea that he had. He had been meeting with some support groups of dementia partners. And one of the things that they all stressed was the fact that they weren't happy when their partner or spouse had to move into a dementia memory care unit, but they needed to stay in an independent living setting. They were still having dinner with them and things, but they weren't actually, going to bed together. And, that personal connection was being lost. And so they had challenged Reed with an idea of, what can we do? What is the offering out in the country for something like this? And so the architects here at CJMW and Reed and his team started collaborating and talking about, well, what does that look like? What is the size of this, new concept? How can we provide a place for a couple to live with one with dementia, but still get the 24-hour support that is needed for that resident or spouse dealing with dementia, but also the one that's the caregiver, they need that support and that relief as well. And just not on an hourly basis or once a week, with an active daycare kind of, setting, but what could they provide? And so if you'll switch to the next slide, one of the things that they came up with, and we studied lots of different ideas of what this grouping of homes, we decided it was still going to be cottages, independent living cottages. And, is it square in nature? Is it round in nature? How could we connect these together, but also connect it to a clubhouse so that this clubhouse would be staffed 24/7. It would actually provide some kind of meal preparation, support. There would be activities and things. And so the final decision rested with this more circular concept, with all of the cottages meeting together at the back to a central corridor that wraps and touches every corridor around an interior courtyard so that they get that greenscape as well. And then a clubhouse, which you can see in this 4 o'clock kind of position. If you'll go to the next slide, you'll see too that we still wanted to keep a very much of a neighborhood feel to it. So even though you'll see here in a moment, every cottage floor plan is exactly the same, the exteriors do have variety in roof styles, materials, colors, and things like that. So you really do get this independent living, cottage, driveway, neighborhood kind of feel. And you can see in this rendering, and this actually hasn't been built yet. We're getting ready to break ground any day. We just got our permit. We're really excited about seeing it come up out of the ground. But you can see that central corridor that has a lot of glass looking over into a very manicured, beautiful courtyard. Let's go to the next page. So here's our cottage. It's actually a 2, or if you want to classify it as a 3-bedroom cottage. It actually has a single garage. It's very much like any cottage with a kitchen, a living room. And then what's unique about it is the flex space or studio that's on the back. This can be it can stand alone as a studio so that you have a bedroom, you have a living room, you get your own bathing room there and a closet. But it gives the residents a lot of flexibility. So if, say, the couple are still, sharing the same bedroom, they can still do that. But if not, then there's the second bedroom in the back in the flex room. The front bedroom could actually work as a den or an office or something like that, or it's a guest space for other family members to come and visit. They even have their own private courtyard, as you can see here, between the cottages. But what the real idea about behind this flex room is, say Mr. Smith, he needs to go get his hair cut, but Mrs. Smith, she can't be left alone. He notifies the staff. He gets her comfortable in the flex room. And then the door that separates that flex room from the cottage, which is right there at the primary bedroom in the center of the cottage, locks. And so there's the secure element of that resident who's still there, that dementia resident, not be able to get outside of the home. But they also have the door that leads to this corridor that wraps around, and they can have free access into that, and then they can go to the clubhouse. So they can come and go as they please between their flex space and the community club area. Let's go on to the next slide. So here's the courtyard that is a private courtyard for each resident's home. It's in that little wedge between the cottages. The one side of the cottage next to you doesn't have any windows, so there's, you know, this real privacy to it. Think of, you know, those little manicured little alley courtyards that you see in Charleston and Savannah. It's that same kind of idea. It would have a fence along the front, but they have their outdoor space and, you know, that real connection to the exterior. Next slide. So here's the flex room, and let me point out a few things here. You do have a window looking into that courtyard, so you still have that beautiful visual to your own private garden. There's enough space for a cafe table. There's a living area, a walk-in closet, and then the bed is over to the right, and it still has a visual into the bathroom. So you get that cue for, you know, using the restroom. It has a full roll-in shower. It has pull-up grab bars so that if it gets to the point where they're needing assistance with bathing and things, they have that opportunity here. They also have their closet, and then if they need help with the idea of what are they going to wear that day, they can actually lock the main walk-in closet, but then they have what they call a one day's clothing kind of closet. And then, of course, you know, there's the door at the south plan of the south wall of the plan, taking you out into the corridor. If you'll go to the next slide. So this is a rendering of this flex room. If you're laying in the bed, you can see into the bathroom, but you also get that nice view to the garden outside of your house, and then you also have that nice living space. So here's the clubhouse, and so that circular courtyard circles around, and then it's very much open. You don't even have doors that you have to enter through. As you're circling through the courtyard or through that corridor, you eventually come to the clubhouse. This clubhouse is more than just a place for them to congregate. There's going to be scheduled activities. Every resident will have their own plan for the day. They have a living room. It also can be a time for all of these families or, you know, these couples to get together in the evening. It becomes more of a true congregate living environment. The staff is always here. There's a kitchen area. They can prepare food. The activity room will be, you know, used for, you know, birthday parties or card games, all kinds of different activities. Let's go to the next slide. So this is the living room, very much want to make it feel like a residential space, but, you know, a clubhouse feel at the same time. And then the next slide should be the dining room. So here, even though they're going to have food brought in, or they can prepare, you know, food to order. One of the things that really was a challenge was, and they're still, you know, trying to, you know, this is going to be an evolution, you know, because there's no data, there was no, you know, history of anything like this. And so one of the things that we worked with Scopo's hospitality group on the kitchen services was, how are we going to man this? How are we going to, you know, how are we going to treat the dining place? And so there's, like, you don't see it in this rendering, but over to the side, there's kind of a grab and go little market with some pre-made salads or sandwiches. So if they don't want to hang out here, but they need some prepared food, they can get that. Or if they won't, they can ask the staff for, you know, a meal, and they're still engaged because the staff is going to be there preparing that food. The residents can see that happening. And then there's the connection between the living room beyond with this beautiful see-through fireplace as well. So here's the courtyard. There was a lot of talk and, design specifically around this. You can see that the courtyard itself has this wandering kind of pathway through it. There's a pergola or a pavilion to one side. It's going to have a fireplace in it, ceiling fans. It gives them a place to join outside, but have the shade as well. And then, of course, there's going to be a potting shed, some other, activities, tables and chairs, a water feature. There's going to be musical instruments, lots of things to engage the residents in the afternoon or during the day in the courtyard. Then, of course, here's the aerial view, so you get a real feel for what the community is going to look like. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Thank you, Beth. This was definitely a project that spurred a lot of innovative conversation between the jurors. Some of the comments were the design to have couples live together with only one needing services is fantastic. This is the new design as we progress in providing care to those needing dementia care. And it's exciting to see how this prototype performs and evolves from a management operations perspective and a resident's feedback on improvement of quality of life. Keeping the familiarity of a family home is commendable effort. Soliciting current ILMC residents couples feedback to inform the prototype plan was a wise move and an opportunity for the agency of the couples by presenting the flexible studio arrangement options. So very nice work there for sure for your team, Beth. Next, we're going to move on to Sue.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jamie, and thank you for having us, giving us the opportunity to present this project. So we're going to bring you to Southern California, and that's important because I think this project really maximizes the local climate and the opportunities to occupy the outdoor spaces that you wouldn't normally be able to do in other parts of the country. So I think that's what we really truly celebrated here. It is it's about 240 IL units with assisted living and memory care set aside. What's unique about this project is pretty typical in California these days is that all independent living is to be licensed as assisted living as well. So this promotes aging in place notion, and that also puts limitations in what we can do with our IL construction types, with our finishes, and with being 4 stories, we are a full concrete building in type 1. And I think that starts to provide different aesthetics and different regulations. And even at the site level, I think this is a project that had a lot of regulatory processes that led or guided what we can and can't do, and also kind of, but I think that also sparked us to have different level of innovation to bring to the project, in which in the end, I think helped all the project all around. So as you can see here, we started out with this notion of having very earthy material that's mimicking wood and the natural stones, and we couldn't use natural wood. So then, what are some of the other materials that we can use to bring those materials or the warmth of it? And I think those were some of the conversations. We're also limited to 40 feet, but we're providing 40 floor stories. So you can imagine the complications that comes with that as well. So we are being recognized under the on the boards category. So we're not built yet. So we're not out of the hurdles yet. We're in permitting, but I think this is a great project to continue to watch and see how we develop. Going to the next slide. Many of you may actually know or be familiar with this project. There's been several different groups of developers and architects who's had hand in on developing this site before we landed on it. And it's part of, so this site used to be part of the television pictures and motion pictures and television fund site, which is an existing continuing care community for retired folks that are associated with the television and motion pictures field. And it's in the at the edge of Woodland Hills and Calabasas on north side of the Los Angeles. It's actually the northern tip of LA County. If we go to the next one, there's also been a lot of different limitations that's imposed on the site about the height limits, proximity by adjacent properties, and those are some of the projects that we project elements that we were going through a lot. And because we are maybe the fourth or the fifth group tackling this project, a lot of the elements already set in place. So it wasn't a blank slate where we're working with. So we have to be creative about how we rethink the footprints that are already designated, what kind of improvements can we make, and where we made the most impact was how we think about the program. Next one. So as you can see, it's multiple building on the left side, 5 buildings to be exact, and then and cottages to the right. The green space in the middle, that's what that is actually a knoll. It's a hill. It's about 3-4 story hill that is something that became to be during the early 60s freeway construction, and now it is actually sacred. And it's a hillside that has trees and different pieces, which now provides outdoor elements and more the natural elements for the site, but at the same time, it also limits how well we can develop and how we connect the 2 sides of the site. There is an underground parking that connects all 5 buildings to the left. So we are creating what we're calling the Disney effect, where all the service is done underground, which really frees up the ground level for pedestrian access. So you can see the car loops around all 5 buildings, and there's no car access allowed between the buildings. And we programmed those in between spaces as much as the indoor spaces to bring a lot of our amenity spaces and programs outdoors. And that also helped to think about how much we can build, and thinking about not necessarily utilizing all, I guess, walled spaces for amenities, and expand far beyond that. And the next one. One of the first things that we started thinking about is, where's the entry point, and what is that how does that circulation work? What is that arrival point, and how do we actually start to differentiate the residents from the visitors? And again, pedestrian access to the vehicular access. And if we go to the next slide, this is actually the diagram that got us the project, which really started talking about the town square notion and then developing a village street. The project that we came to had a town center building in the middle, which had 3 stories of amenity spaces, and then everything else was independent living. But we want to really shake that up and think about, well, if I'm on one part of the campus, and if I'm only going and coming and going between the townhouse, is that an experience we want in Southern California? Not really. So what if we distributed, really decentralized the amenity spaces and distributed throughout the campus? So there is a reason for you to visit and utilize the in-between spaces. And this is what it came to be. And so thinking about where's the dining with the service, but creating different notions of amenity spaces around it. So there's the notion of village streets, and with the different courtyards, they may have different themes. One might be active, one might be quiet, more contemplative, and different scales also. So we're providing different spaces that might fit, different personalities and needs for various residents. There's going to be over 300 residents on this campus, so we want to make sure that we had a variety of spaces that fit to everyone's need. We go to the next one. So at the end of the main street on the left, this is the assisted living and memory care. And this also poses different types of opportunities and challenges. Typically this is a building that everyone wants to shy away from. So how do we bring folks back to this area? So, and then how do we celebrate that at that end of the main street? So one of the things that we started doing is that we brought the main theater here. And there's a natural grade slope that happened that dropped this area about 3 feet. And that allows us to create an amphitheater outdoors so that we can do, we had a theater that was indoors, but also with outdoor theater that can also provide movie nights and different events like that. And also brought the wellness center here that's associated with the assisted living and memory care. So it became the end of the wellness district as well. The next one. And then this is kind of early development design photos for at the end of that area. So kind of utilizing the facade and converting that space to amenity spaces, whether it could be just tables and chairs, but also it could be converted to an outdoor viewing or a movie night or a movie day events. Or it could even be, we're calling it movies, but it could be any kind of presentations that's outdoors. Next slide. And then as we move a little bit more to the right, then we started placing a lot of the many elements like art studios and art package rooms. And the marketing also sits outside the main building. And the idea is that when you have folks coming into marketing, they're not invited into the community immediately, but they're they're introduced by the marketing staff and then escorted through, and then really recognizing that this is a residence and the lobby is reserved for the resident use. So all the pink areas that you're seeing are amenity space that flanks the main street. And then thinking about how do we develop that main street. So on the right, that the larger corner piece, that's our indoor outdoor bistro, all day dining. So with the kitchen below that. So kind of taking advantage of it, we're providing outdoor kitchen opportunities here, barbecues, and with the art studios too, we'll see a rendering later. Thinking about how the art studios actually connect outdoors. Can we go to the slides on the next one? I think this one is maybe, this is not exactly what I was thinking was the next slide, but that's okay. So this is studies that we've been doing to think about then, as we talk about outdoor spaces, how do we bring that to a personal scale as well? And what are our balcony situations, and also how the materials fit together? We're learning that a lot of the balconies in multifamily, they're when you do a typical 5 feet, they don't get used. They get storage. They get used as a storage. A lot of times you see maybe pots put out there. But when you size it large enough, so you can actually put tables and chairs, that's when it really truly becomes an outdoor living room and become a personal space. That's your private outdoor area. So those are kind of the attentions that we were paying. Next one. And then this is the kind of the main hub of the building. So on the ground floor is most of the amenity spaces. So the most in the middle is the lobby and the 2 dining venues. And then one of the unique elements that we put together was the auditorium or the performing arts center that you have to proceed through the building and our outdoor courtyard before you can actually arrive at the auditorium. So even if you're a visitor visiting from outside, you get the full experience of the community before you're actually arriving at the pre-function space. And you can see there are pools and different elements. And then this is a bistro that's flanking the corner. Again, indoor, outdoor. This is the beginning of our bistro with nano walls, so we can open it up and then close it as needed. And the bar also has that set up. Across the way here, we provided space for food trucks. So you can do anything from like coffee trucks to different like rotating food trucks around the week or around the month. So to supplement the food venues that's available here. On the next one, this is the inside of that bistro. So again, you can see how that looks out to the to outside from this corner. And can we go to the next one? This is the indoor dining. And to the right, there's actually an exhibition kitchen and chef's table. So there's special events and demonstrations that can happen. And you can see all the outdoor dining spaces to the left. And then beyond that, we have the pool, decks and whatnot. And the building across that also houses wellness. And to the right of that would be the auditorium or the performing arts center, so that this courtyard flanks all the major amenities around this outdoor space. Next one. The client had a notion of this being, having brought Hollywood glam early on. So I think there's a lot of that trying to put together, but this is not a traditional building, as you can see. So it does celebrate a lot of the modern aspects of the current design that's more popular in the area in multifamily housing. But at the same time, bringing some of the I think what we wanted to make sure is that it's not too ultra modern, so it plays to a lot of different perspectives and different tastes of different clients. And then this is a second floor bar or the wine club that overlooks the knoll, and then to the right side of that is actually the pool deck. So I think there are a few other images that can show the adjacencies. Next one. There you go. So on the upper, so the deck you're seeing on the second floor to the left of the pool, that's outside terrace for the wine bar. And then you can see the pool and then the amenity space in the middle. So this is an event lawn, so it's outdoor space, but it's also large enough to provide a tent if you want to do larger covered area that has extension to the dining to the left and the performing arts to the right. It's a lot of, there's a lot of pre-function spaces. We made provisions for outdoor bar and so service points, and we're still in conversations about, can we do outdoor TV in this area for games and things like that. There's a lot of talk about trails and outdoor spaces, and this, because we have the knoll that actually provides kind of almost embedded hiking trail, we can provide different levels of different levels of trails to accommodate different levels of fitness. So some of these diagrams are showing, what those trails look like in the path and the connections.
Excellent. Thank you, Sue. Great project. A couple of the comments from the jury were wonderful blend of indoor-outdoor spaces, great attention to walkability and clarity of wayfinding for the pedestrian experience. The site layout will allow a great intergenerational experience, and the aesthetics raise the bar. It does not look like a retirement community. So this one was definitely well received. And we are getting tight on time, so I'm going to hand it over to Stephen and appreciate everybody sticking with us as we have our final project here.
Okay. And normally a tour of this building might take an hour and a half, so I will make this go as quick as possible. Yeah, we're just really honored to be part of this group and presenting the Springs of the Waterfront. The concept for this project was to take what would normally be a program that would sit on 4 to 5 acres and place it on 1.3 acres within an urban setting. The program is 250 residents of independent living, assisted living, and memory care. It was a collaboration with the Springs Living and PMB as development partners, and their experience and knowledge of function and staff needs and adjacencies led to our success as a design team. The project achieved LEED Gold as well as 3 stars on the Fitwell certification. The Springs Living at the Waterfront is located at the Vancouver waterfront, which is a district that began developing in 2016 and has a very vibrant life along the waterfront of the Columbia River with tasting rooms and restaurants and a farmer's market and very walkable activities. We can move on to the next slide. This slide will have all of our plans, so we'll shorten it up quite a bit. But the program of the project, there's significant amenities for IL living support on the 1st and 2nd levels. Independent living residences stack above that, and assisted living and memory care are elevated to the 7th and 8th floors to provide an equality of view access and pull away from the typical aspect of just being set on the ground floor. The 9th floor also has an outdoor roof amenity that is accessible to everyone. A few other notes on this is that we were faced with challenges of the rising water table of the Columbia River and cycling down to provide the below grade parking, as well as an FAA height limitation to the building. So a lot of challenges with stacking that program within a very tight site. The other aspect of inserting our project within this urban setting is there's really no back of house. And we'll see that in some of the slides to come. Shared amenities, I'm sorry, go back one more second. The shared amenities all gravitate towards the south end of the building to take full advantage of those river views and sight lines to mountains as well. So we can go to the next slide. The exterior is comprised of a palette of warm materials to be inviting and welcoming and home-like, with earth tones of brick, dark bronze, metals, and wood accents. If you go to the next slide, you can see in the upper right-hand corner the waterfront facing facade. In the lower left-hand is one of the pedestrian mews access to the waterfront for the rest of the district. This happens to be on the back side service entry, and so you can get an idea from that view of what I mean of not allowing anything to look back of house. The view to the right is the fireside entry and it's a bit more commercial pedestrian access edge to the building. Move on. The view to the right is again that south-facing facade. You can start to see the playfulness of copper and blue glass spandrel panels that emulate the reflections of the Columbia River's current. The rooftop amenity includes a putting green, garden beds, ample seating with a variety of opportunities from dining tables to fire pits, an outdoor barbecue, and a dog run. We can move on. The interior is comprised of a concept of Pacific Northwest modern, intention of it being an extension of the resident's home. Taking colors from rugged coastlines, forest walks, and arid desert expanses of eastern Washington. Within this view, you can see the globe lights that are above the reception desk were custom blown lights provided by a local artisan. There's other touches throughout the project of those personal touches and artistry that add to it feeling like your own personal home. Within the seating area, you can see a use of light tones, natural woods, Oregon white oak, locally sourced materials. The spaces also include a lot of technology with the use of acoustical ceilings that are perforated wood and acoustical backing to soften the space. We can move on to the next slide. This fireside view provides another showing of that communal space to share activities. I'm going to continue on. Ground floor dining. This is the Pacific Ridge dining, a little bit more formal space. The intention of the fireplace centralized there is to break it into smaller seating groups and have a more intimate feel while still providing sufficient seating for the number of residences that will inhabit this project. Fancho's, adjacent to Pacific Ridge, provides another food venue with a little bit more relaxed pool hall, a bit more masculine, darker materials that are a complement to its namesake. Fancho's was the grandfather of Feast Stubblefield, who founded the Springs Living. The barrel vaults, again, use the acoustical perforated wood ceilings to soften what would otherwise be a potentially hard surface and loud space. Fancho's also takes advantage of the views of the Columbia waterfront with floor-to-ceiling glass and expansive views. So, we can continue on. Additional amenities are shown on this slide, from a display kitchen and card and puzzle room to an art studio on the upper right, a theater that seats 49 residents at a time, and in the lower left, the entry lobby to the wellness wing, which is on the second floor and a bit of a departure from the rest of the residential feel. If you go to the next slide, that wellness wing takes on a very elevated spa-like environment. The pool has a zero line edge, but functionality comes first with ramp access, making it so that residents have equal access to the pool facility. In the background, you can see another touch of handcrafted local tiles. That is an image of the Columbia Gorge, and the mosaic was detailed dot by dot by our interiors group and then fabricated by a local tile shop. In these views, on the left two views are of memory care environments, and the right two views are of assisted living environments. And you can see that there's an equality in level of finish and environment and views that we felt was extremely necessary as people age in place and find that they have other service needs. This page shows some of the residential units. Each unit is highlighted with a wood entry. Again, taking advantage of views and providing an elevated interior environment. This slide provides a little bit of representation of our thought for back of house spaces and staff environment. Staff come first. Their enjoyment leads to resident enjoyment. So all back of house spaces were considered as front of house environments as well, with quality finishes, access to daylight, and support. We can move on. This slide actually takes us to the end of our tour, which is the wine room on the roof, which is where we try and take all of our physical tours. And you can see the service space to the left and seating groups around. That was a quick summary of the project. I'm sorry for running over a bit.
No, all good. Thank you, Stephen. Very, very beautiful project for sure. Some of the jury comments were elevated staff spaces and applaud to the use of design elements in ALMC spaces to match other amenities within the building. Staff spaces, site usage, beautiful amenity space, and lead credits were all accredited to this project's success with the jurors. And the building is stunning in both architecture and in interiors. And again, the focus on staff is also so key. So really great project there. I want to thank everybody for sticking with us. We did go a few minutes over, and I apologize for that, but we really appreciate you guys attending today. And this will conclude the AIA continuing education portion of the course, but we do have a few more minutes for some questions. So if anybody does have any they'd like to ask, you can go ahead and add those up to the little chat button up at the top. Let me see if I can pull this first one up here. So let's see here. So I'm not immediately seeing any questions. I don't know if anybody has one they'd like to throw in quickly.
Yeah, actually, there is one from Gina asking, at Broadview at Purchase College, other than the Learning Commons area, is there any other amenities that are open to the communities, such as a cafe? Was there any challenge breaking down the boundaries of the senior living spaces? And so before we answer that, Jamie, if you could just go to the next slide so folks can see the contact information for all of our panelists. If you're too shy to type in your question, you can always reach out to them directly. And take it away.
Yeah, so I think to address your question, we try to monitor the spaces between the Learning Commons and the original building as best as possible for resident safety. So there are opportunities that people from outside the community can come in, use the dining facilities and other parts of the facilities, but they wanted to make sure that it was monitored at all times. So I think there is availability that is being utilized. There's musicians that come in from the college that do entertainment, and there's other areas of engagement with inside these spaces that is available to the community. But it was a big consideration to make sure that security was foremost with the residents.
Excellent. Thanks, Chad. Not immediately seeing any other questions there that are coming up.
And Jamie, I'll just jump in again. This is Lori Sage. And so I'm going to be sending out a link to the webinar recording to everybody who registered for today's session. And that link will include a link if you're interested in serving on the jury for the 2026 competition. You can throw your hat into the ring there. So keep an eye out for that. And I actually just got an email from EFA, and reservations for the 2026 competition to save your spot are going to be due on October 10th, with presentations due on the 29th. And so if they have that reservations page open up yet already, I will also include that in the follow-up email.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to say that maybe because we had such great presentations today, very thorough, that maybe that's helped minimize the questions. Not sure, but I really want to thank everybody for joining us here today. And special thanks to all of our panelists for sharing their time and expertise. In just a minute, you're going to be prompted to fill out a course evaluation survey, and we'd appreciate hearing any of your thoughts on today's session. Also, all webinar registrants will receive a link to the recording of today's session via email within a few business days. So on behalf of SAGE and EFA for their design showcase, I want to thank everybody for joining us today.